When I first started out leaving the Army, I got my first introduction to networking through a buddy who contacted me right before I got out. And he had me come on over to MCI. No interview, just walked in, training, and then sat down doing the job, providing support for the FAA. And all that's on recorded lines. And I kind of had to relearn my job because it was a little bit different than anything I'd done before.
Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Trevor, and looking forward to this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a little bit of a different format we're doing today, okay? What I wanted to do, again, is my goal is that the audience can get to know you, what you're searching for, and let's see if we can get this who you know thing happening, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. So if I can help you to connect and really bring some exposure and shine a light on what you got going and how we can help and support it. And then also, I wanted to kind of flip the script and allow you an opportunity to really ask me some questions, see how I can personally help your job search efforts, right? So before we get to all of that, though, I want you to let the audience know a little bit about yourself and your professional background, where you come from, and what you're looking for, most importantly.
Yeah, my name is Mike Murphy, and I've been doing network support for quite a long time, think decades. When I first started out leaving the Army, I got my first introduction to networking through a buddy who contacted me right before I got out. And he had me come on over to MCI. No interview, just walked in, training, and then sat down doing the job, providing support for the FAA. And all that's on recorded lines. And I kind of had to relearn my job because it was a little bit different than anything I'd done before. But the volume was just a lot higher. One thing that I was clued in on at the very beginning was metrics were just so important in the civilian world. It's just something I wasn't used to at all. But I really took that and just decided, okay, well, I'm going to find out where the pain points are, and I'm just going to keep on driving on those, whatever they happen to be. The first couple jobs, I'm moving through and I'm learning really quickly, just taking on new knowledge and just soaking it all up like a sponge. But I moved from that operations environment on over into a company that built networking gear, which was actually a fairly common pathway for somebody that goes into an operations role in a major carrier. Many of my peers went over to Cisco, for example. So I walk in, I don't know anything about the equipment. Within a week, I'm teaching people things that they hadn't tried out yet. And those people move on to Cisco. But they were so effective in recruiting that there wound up being a little bit of a deal between the two, not to recruit within MCI, or we kind of have to stop buying your gear because you're taking all our talent.
So when you say network, okay, you're going to have to excuse me. A lot of this stuff, this isn't my world, right? So when you say network, are we talking about like internet? Is that what this is?
It would be the connections, mostly to companies that are connecting to the internet or
connecting to the internet. Okay.
Yeah. Say, for example, you have a site, an airline has
break it down for me in it down for me in dumb people language like me, because I don't understand all this stuff. Listen, I'm glad there's people like you who can who can do this, because I don't get it. Go ahead.
So you got your Starbucks or your Target or your Walmart, and they have connections back into central locations to either work with infrastructure that they have, the servers, their ordering, their point of sale contacts you're running your card through. All those come back through in one way or another to some location, for security and also for control, but also to just get you connected to the rest of the company. When somebody takes a box of soap or something off the shelf, they need to know that now they've got an ordering need. Well, all that data has to pass through something. And that connectivity, I've largely been on the business side of it. So business to business. They're working internally. They might have peers, but that's a separate gateway. But at the end of the day, they all have a need to continue that exchange of information all the time. And that comes down to, and that even comes to your phone services and, when they're doing video inside, prioritizing the video inside. But it could be anything all the way up to a stadium, as an example. Think about it, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes in to a stadium, and just imagine
I got
even
you.
more. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I hear what you're saying. So like the network isn't necessarily just internet. Like I'm thinking, okay, internet, but this is more so the connectivity of all the processes and systems within an organization, right? How everything connects, how that data flows. Like you said, if someone's let's say at a stadium, right? All of those systems from tickets to sodas at the thing, like how everything is connecting, right? Am I understanding it correct?
Correct. And cameras have really come up to be a big part of that too.
Okay.
For lots of different reasons.
Yeah. And I could see that would be, that's for some, especially the bigger the company, right? A lot of times it's like, I mean, even for myself, right? I've got all these different systems and they're not always connected, right? They're not always like, you know what I mean? I got a lot of different systems all over the place.
They don't play well with with others.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? And so, yeah, I could see that even with a big organization, like a big company. What are some of the big companies that you've helped to solve some of those problems for?
Mostly carriers, Verizon, but the last company I was with, some of their services were provided through school systems, as an example. You don't realize the complexity of the networks that your local school system has to provide and keep secure, be it faculty, students, guests, visitors, any kind of announcement systems, camera systems that they may have to do. There's a lot of complexity that goes into that, and keeping that running and not stepping on each other all the time, and separated so that they're secure is a major deal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, talk to me about now. Let's dive into your search. Okay. Because what I want to do is help, again, shine a light on what you're looking for, and then, see how we can open some doors and some opportunities for you. What kind of opportunities are you currently looking for? And is there a certain type of culture or fit that you're looking for as well? Like, talk to us about what's the target here? What are we looking for?
I worked for large companies, the largest company, and then also most of my customers have been really large companies, but working with small teams really seems to be an area that I just love. It's something where you've got that startup environment. I mean, startups, like, it could be something inside a large company where somebody's finally recognized, hey, there's a real need to change the way we're doing business right now. Something's disrupted our market. Now we have something new we have to deliver. What's the right service structure for that? So those kind of environments where it's not nailed down or it's flexible and you have to respond quickly, where you wear a lot of hats, that seems to be an area where I just love diving in, finding out everybody else's job, figuring out how I can add value throughout the organization. It's not just about providing support for a technical question. That's about 35% on average of what I've been doing. A large portion of it beyond that, once you reach a level of responsibility, is making sure that the processes are working. Because when you first start a company, you're very products oriented, maybe you're service oriented, but then they get stagnant and they kind of stay the way they were because it's good enough, but it doesn't scale. And over time, those inefficiencies that are there from the very beginning start to eat away at all your time, and they become distracting. And when you look at a company that hasn't been looking at that over time, what you wind up with is this really complex user interface where the staff is almost more working on the tool than they are working with the customer. Now, you should be wanting to talk to the customer more than playing around with which button do I hit, which one. There's too many rules related to that. You need to make it simpler.
So tell me again, what are some target companies that you're looking for right now? What are a few target companies that you have that we can try to help you get to?
the companies that I've been looking for are more the ones that are experiencing pain, the ones that know they have to change and they're willing to take a look at that and open it up. There's always a lot of strain inside the tech companies because of changes, but Cisco would be one. Hewlett Packard Enterprise, or what would be Juniper, would be another. I've been looking also at Southwest Airlines. They seem to be going through a little bit of a challenge right now. I look at the positions, and I just can't help but see the overlaps between the flows that they have to have and the way that the networking environment has to work, and the queuing structures that go along with that.
So earlier I heard, maybe a little bit smaller companies or smaller teams that you can work on. But now I'm hearing Cisco, Southwest, what was the other one? Juniper or Hewlett HP? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Yeah. They just acquired Juniper.
Which are fairly larger companies. So my next question is, when it comes to this, in your job search, like how long have you been searching so far?
So I started back in September. I had some commitments. in September, and I helped start an entrepreneurial venture, which kind of got to a point where it really needed to have some additional focus, and did that as we moved through a new quoting system through the end of the year. But yeah, it's really been since about April that I've really been looking at applying for positions.
Okay. So, all right. So really actively searching since April?
Correct. Yeah. Up till then was really other priorities. Those have all been taken care of and now are off the plate. They've been moved over to contractors.
All right. The reason I'm asking this, talk to me about since April, how have you felt? Have you felt like you're dealing with any kind of like age discrimination or anything like that? Like when your applications are going out, like what's the response like?
It's a little bit different than you might think. It's a very certification driven industry. So when I had people working for me in the past who were getting nervous, they see the overall financial results and they get a little bit nervous. I'm like, well, just make sure your certs are taken care of, and then you don't have to worry about it. If anything happens, then you're prepared. I wish I'd taken my own advice in that perspective, but it's easier to give than to take that action, because I was always looking at taking care of them rather than taking care of me, and I just gave up in some of the areas that I shouldn't have given up in, meaning like gave up my time for other things. And that part, it was sound advice to them. It was sound advice to me too. And I didn't see that reflection at the time because I was more looking at, what's the next thing that I have to look at? There's a never ending stream of things that can be improved. And I'm always looking for that improvement. So I'm working on that. And the certification and the technology challenges that I had, they just weren't major challenges to my role anymore. The more important things and the things where all the heavy lifting took place was really in making the company better.
Okay. So again, I go back to that question about as you're applying, tell me about your experience. What kind of experience are you getting as you're applying at these companies? And, are you getting any responses, any callbacks, interviews?
And that's where you come back to, it's a certification driven thing. So if I'm dealing with a human can understand, yes, you've gotten this amount of time working on these protocols, working on these products. And that's where it's killing me, is the ATS is just, I don't have the cert, so it's.
I know this may be a little painful. I'm digging for a reason here. There is an issue going on. Okay. So again, you said the skills and qualifications, right? And some of these bigger companies, okay, because they have their pool of candidates is so large, they are going to be super selective and super picky about who they choose. And so they want what they call the purple squirrel, right? They want that person that meets every little checkbox. And if they're not perfect, right, the ATS is going to kick you out, right? And you're going to get those automated canned emails. So what I would suggest is that you do look at smaller companies. The smaller companies, you're going to be able to network, right? And get to a person who can override and really open that door of opportunity for you, because the bigger companies, again, they're just going to be so selective. Not that it's impossible for you to get into a larger company like that. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Nothing's impossible. But it's just going to be more challenging. And this is where what I see is I've been working with senior level, job seekers for years, is that they're going after these big guys, these big companies, and it just takes them so much longer. And that's why the job search for someone that's over 50 takes a year and a half, 2 years, is because they're going after these big companies when they could focus on smaller or medium-sized companies, get some networking going on, get a person involved. This is where I always talk about humanizing the job search process, get the human element in as soon as possible. Because the more you do that, the better your odds are at getting someone to overlook those, oh, wait, he doesn't have this specific, qualification, or this little checkbox isn't there, but look, he's got all this experience. He's been doing this for ever and ever and ever, right? So they can override that in a smaller company, as where a larger company, they're going to be so tight with all of that. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And usually also your larger companies have much more restrictions, and things move quite a bit slower when it comes to adopting change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the larger companies, it's like moving an old ship. Okay. And it's like they got so much going on. It's hard to crack. Okay. So I'm not going to say it's impossible, right? And I don't want to ever discourage anybody from going after an opportunity. I just want to be real and let people know what's going on behind the scenes so that they have a better shot, right? And it's a real thing. It really goes on. Ageism is real. We see it when we go to Frisco Connect. There's a job networking group out where I live here in Frisco. Michael, that may have been where I met you. Is that where I met you?
It could have been. It could have been.
So you've been there before. When you walk in the room, there's 100 senior level executives. Everybody's over 50, and you see it. You see the age discrimination, right? And so it's something that I am super passionate about helping people overcome, because it is a real thing. It happens every single day. And so anyways, that's what I wanted to give you some other ideas on how to overcome that. Let's talk about your personal brand for a minute, because it's important right now that people know what you need. That's actually why we're doing this episode. I want to shine a light on it, because if nobody knows you, nobody flows you. Okay. So we need to bring some visibility to your job search. Talk to me about your personal brand and what are you doing to enhance your personal brand right now?
I've kind of stayed off posting for a very long time. And over the last several months, I've really started putting out a lot more of the experience that I've had engaging with other people quite a bit more. I've seen some of the, I think it's LinkedIn social selling, the score go up and up and up and up. You really want to reciprocate if somebody is going to wind up looking at your content, making a comment. Just acknowledge that they've made a comment. Be engaged with them. One thing that I always looked at is I just like my customers. And that's something that you walk into a service organization, a lot of times people look at it like, oh, they're a smaller customer, and they can kind of wait a little while. And I always looked at customers from a service perspective all the time, because selling is hard enough, but the agony of somebody who's gotten that sale and then the service falls flat when they're done. Your sales guy is now going to start getting that contact. And what we're seeing overall on the service side of the house is this idea that an AI can take the place of service. So you see the chatbots and the rise of the chatbots. And yeah, I did a little survey that just ended. Not that much response, which was a little bit more to get an idea about this. But some people are looking at it like, yeah, it's an AI, but we're willing to pay just as much as we would for a human for that AI, even though it's free in perpetuity.
I got you. So you're putting out content, doing polls and things like that to get an idea of insight of what's going on in your industry. Is that where you were kind of going with that?
Part of that is insight, but part of that is also starting to take a look more at what's the value of service. Is it really just answering a technical question? Because a lot of that information has been available online for a long time. It's the thing of, I want the guided tour. I don't want the one size fits all solution that nobody didn't find already on the internet. They need somebody to walk them through the complexity and find an answer, and to work through whatever parts of the company they need to make that answer happen, to make it better for them. And you just can't get that from an AI. It's an output, but then it dies right there. It stops, and the value add ends. They can't make it better in the long term.
The AI is good, right? And it's only as good as the person using it, right? So as of right now, anyways, So okay, so you're doing some social media. You're trying to get your brand up. Okay, you're trying to, because I know you had mentioned you'd stayed off of it for a long time, right? And this is pretty common too. We see, with some of the executives and things like that, senior level executives, seasoned folks, and we see that, right? It's like, I think it's a generational thing, right? And so you stayed off, and now you're like, okay, well, I need to kind of pick that up a little bit because I need to get discovered, right? And that's one of the things that I like to help people do, is to help you get discovered. Let's talk about what are some strategies that you have, some effective strategies. What's working for you in your job search, and where did you find the strategies? What's going on for you?
As far as the area, let me just say where I'm struggling, if you don't mind on that one. So when I first got out, most of my jobs have all come from referrals. I mean, the who you know really has been my story since leaving the Army. That's been consistent all the way through. I found one job out of all the positions that I've had through just finding it on the internet and applying for it. But my tribe was back in North Carolina. Yeah, I moved to Texas, and job search changed. And it at the same time, job changed, and then I wound up working for another company, ironically back in North Carolina, through connections that my wife had. So that part I haven't yet figured out, how to get connected to people in a real meaningful way, because there's a difference between being connected on LinkedIn and being able to refer somebody to someone else. There just is.
Okay, I got you. Well, let's talk about that. That's perfect. I'm glad you're bringing this up. So what I'm hearing is, you've always, been able to secure opportunities from networking, from connecting with your peers, your colleagues, people that right? Which is amazing. And that's what we need to do now. It's actually going to be your lifeblood in your job search now. We have to get that human element back in. But the challenge for you is building those relationships online versus in person, right? And your network not being from here, right? So, okay, perfect. I can definitely help you with that, right? I've built some of the most powerful relationships with people I had never even met. Okay. Never even met. Like I didn't meet them for years and years and years. And then you finally meet them in person, and it blows your mind. It's like, whoa, you know what I mean? I'll give you an example. So right now we're doing this podcast episode live in Clubhouse right now, Breakfast with Champions, right? And I built a relationship with this guy named Glenn Lundy, right? And me and Glenn Lundy, we're doing a lot of networking. He had a show, and I got to go on his show, and then he came on my show, and then we were just networking, helping each other, supporting each other. And then all of a sudden this thing Clubhouse came out, and he was like, "Hey, Trevor, I want you to, come over here and join me on this thing called Clubhouse." And I was like, "What? What is that?" I didn't know anything about it. Anyway, long story short, we got to do a lot of collaboration through the internet. I never met this guy through the internet. A lot of networking. Okay. Became really close. And then finally, he came and flew in to do my show in person. And I'm telling you, it's like we had been connected for years, building relationship, a couple of years before I ever met him in person. This is just one example, and I've got so many examples. But it was like, he's like a brother. You know what I mean? Like that, like seriously, we had a super powerful connection. Now, why? What is it that forged that connection? It's because we were constantly pushing power to power, right? I recognized his influence. I recognized his mission. I recognized what he was about. I recognized that it was very similar to my own. And I used this technique called pushing power to power, right? I wanted to help him and support him and add value to him as much as I could. And I was constantly pushing power his way, any way I could, any way I could push value to him. And then in return, he naturally did it. The law of reciprocity. He naturally just did the exact same thing to me. And that's why when the whole Clubhouse thing happened and he called on me, he was like, "Trevor, I want you. You know what I mean? I want you to come with me." And so that's how you do it online, is figuring out people who, what we call it is like, who's your tribe? Who are those people that align with your values, align with your mission, and go figure out how you can help them. That's what networking is. How can you make the other person's life easier? How can you solve a problem for them? How can you push power to them? How can you spotlight them? How can you help and support them? And what they will naturally want to do is do the exact same thing. They're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, wow, I can't believe Trevor did this, and this for me." Right? And so this forges a bond in a relationship, okay, that you don't have to have met this person in person for that to happen. Okay. So I want you to know that. And I always say, give and then ask, right? Give and then have an ask. So it's important for you to think about and craft a specific ask that anytime you are in a situation where you're networking, when someone asks you the question, "Hey, what can I do for you? Hey, Michael, how can I help you? Hey, Michael, how can I support you?" You just automatically have an ask. "Hey, actually, you know what? Boom, this is what I need." And you ask the world for what you need, and it just comes to you. The more you ask, the more you receive.
It's funny, but I literally, I had that exact question asked of me. And at the time, I always knew when somebody has the ask, when they want to know. My CEO used to walk around inside the building, and he would just ask. And somebody made the funny story, or it looked at least to me funny, that one day he was back in the break room and he made the comment, "If I go and ask Mike a question, and he starts the response with, 'Well, how are things going?' Well, so I know I'm about to get work that I have to do." Because I made it important to have something for him that only he could do. And I wasn't going to bug him until it was time that he needed to know or wanted to know. But every time he came up, I made it my goal to have something for him that would help move the company forward. I just didn't have an answer when this person asked me when I'd connected online, what can I do for you? I'm like, I'd never thought of that.
Well, you need to have that. Okay. Think on that. Seriously, think on it really, really hard. And this is where I was asking you kind of behind the stage, right? Behind the stage, I was asking you about like target companies. What do you need right now? Where do you want to go? What can help you? And so when someone asks you that question of, hey, Mike, how can I help you? Right? What can I do for you? It's like, boom. Right. So for me, I'll give you a perfect example. This year, I'm extremely focused on my public speaking, not just podcasting, but other people's stages, and so I'm really focused on that. And when people ask me, hey, Trevor, what can I do for you? I'm like, hey, actually this year I'm extremely focused on my speaking engagements. So if you know of any conferences, stages, events, groups, anything that you think I would be a good fit for, I'd love to explore it. So would you mind taking a look at my speaker sheet? Right. And they'll always say yes. They're like, oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll send it to them, which basically has topics on the different things that I like to speak on. Right. And so all of a sudden ideas start coming, and one dot connects me to another dot, which connects me to a stage. And all I had to do is ask for it. That's all I had to do was ask.
One thing that I notice is every time I've made a transition, I seem to move more towards the entrepreneurial side. So I'm working in that first company after leaving MCI, and they'd made a habit of walking people out, never explained why. Well, it's because they'd gotten a job with a competitor, but I'm new. My prior experience doesn't give me any context for why that might happen. So I figure, okay, well, I'm going to tell them I need to move back to North Carolina. We were in California at the time and moved back to North Carolina. So I guess, when I get my notice, it'll be the end of it, and I'll just get walked to the door. So I'd prepared everything and I was ready to go. And but I had in the back of my mind something to ask for, which was, we've had this customer that really isn't doing all that well. We have two up in that one area where it's going to move back to. And I said, well, when they made it clear, no, you misunderstood why we're walking them out. I go, well, what I'd really like to do right here is to go over and rescue this account because they're struggling in services. They're not doing well. And I'd really like to help them out. And we'll figure out whatever compensation goes along with that later on. They go, absolutely, no problem. Go ahead and do that. I'm driving out of the mountains. They call me up and say, no, we don't need you to go over there and rescue that account. We need to go over to this other account that had much bigger sales and go rescue them. And so that wound up being the direction to go in. And when I look back in history, and I've had a little bit of time to think about it, it's always been toward entrepreneurship. One month I took since that my decision to go leave that last role, I just wrote down the ideas that I'd had about what businesses to start, what products to make, what ideas, am I going to just let wither on the vine? Which ones would I like to move forward with? And I don't think I'll ever get over the entrepreneur or inventor or process improvement goal. It's just, I was worried about that because I'd always gone into a position, work about 3 months and I get elevated up. You're now dedicated to this customer because you've proven yourself. And then the invention, the innovation kind of drops off and I'm focused on one thing. And then I get into a role where I've got to stand and deliver. I get to be on stage with the customer every single day. It's awesome. But I was worried, am I going to get to 3 months and I'm going to run out of ideas? And the answer was no. It was constant renewing. Plow the field over again, make it better. It was good enough for yesterday and never quit. And so rather than taking tons of time, we were able to scale. We were able to be responsive because we didn't waste a lot of time in that nasty tool activity of inefficiency, where instead of trying to pack everybody's day full of things, it's like, let's look at efficiency from how little time can we make this take, but still build that relationship and respect the customer and make sure we're using their time effectively just as much as we're using our own. So yeah, I don't think I'll ever get beyond and I don't think I want to, beyond that startup mentality, competing with giants and being willing and not losing heart when things look bad, find a way to move beyond it, around it, or through it. That's just what I love. So you're right. The bigger companies are not my target. It's just they've always been kind of go-to, because you look for a startup, you're like, what are you looking for? Am I looking for one of my own, or am I looking for somebody to work with? I love working in a team. I just do.
Another thing I will tell you, just from talking with you and having some communication with you, even just through this interview, right? Something that, and this is like my business partner, Mark, he's the same way. Okay. I see a very analytical person in front of me, and that's why you do what you do, right? That's why you're in the systems and the networks and all of this, right? You're the type of person that can tell you how the watch works. Okay. You can like pull back the curtain and you want to tell someone how the watch actually works. What I think you should really, really practice and focus on, and this is something that's going to be, you're going to have to be intentional in this, but you're going to have to take that information, okay, and siphon it down to tell somebody what time it is, right? So that they can actually understand, right, and follow along, right? So just like even in your interviews, once you start getting some interviews coming along, right, we want to make sure that they're very succinct and that your answers are very clear. And this is something I go through because it is sales. You're having to sell yourself, right? So like my business partner, he'll want to tell you exactly how everything works and again, how the watch works. What most people want to know is what time it is. And in an interview process, especially, they want to know what time it is. Okay. How can you help our company, our organization? How can you make it more efficient? How can you save us money? How can you do this, that, and the other, right? They want clear answers. And so that's something that I think that you're going to have to really be intentional in your interview process, is figuring that part out. Okay. Because it's not your natural. Your natural is the more analytical side, which there's nothing wrong with that. Right. But in the interview, we're going to have to be a little bit more direct. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Part of that reflects the nature of a customer engagement. You're always teaching somebody, especially when you're not the largest, when you're not the 800-pound gorilla in the business and you're competing with the 800-pound gorilla. A lot of times people haven't invested a lot of time in working with your equipment. So you're spending some of that time always teaching and expanding, so they know, hey, not only can I use it this way, but I can also use it this way. These are some other features that are related to what I called about. And I'm just going to add a little bit of value here and a little bit of value there, but not too much. And then I'm going to step away. And you may remember that when you go talk to your sales guy next time. And you may remember that when you start looking at, can I fit you in more places? Because service isn't just answer the technical question. It's always a matter of where can you expand the business? And if you look at the history, that's been pretty much what it is. Always looking at how can we make ourselves more efficient, even sales.
Absolutely. How can you bring in the Amazon experience? But what I'm saying is figuring out how we can make, and even mirroring. Okay. Mirroring is an interview technique. Okay. So when you're in interviews, mirroring the energy that the other person is putting off. Right. And so, if you have another analytical guy that's interviewing you, you guys would get along just fine. Y'all would get in there and just, right? I'm serious.
I'm talking to Mark, great guy. We had a great conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. You and Mark can talk for hours. Okay. Like seriously, I'm not kidding you. For a guy like me, right? Me and Mark are complete opposites, right? We just are. He's the yin and the yang to our organization, right? I'm much more direct, right? And it's just my personality type. So if you got a guy like me in an interview, in a job interview, right? You just need to recognize who you're talking to and be able to mirror who you're with, okay, their energy and their style, and not change who you are. I'm not saying change your personality and change who you are and not be authentic, all that. Like, you need to be authentically you, but this is sales. Okay. This is sales, and you got to sell yourself. And so one of the things is it's called mirroring, and you just mirror. Like, imagine, I remember back when I was in the auto industry. Okay. I remember, I'd have all kinds of different people walk in. Okay. All kinds of different people. I'd have this sweet old lady that walked in. Right. And I had to be much more gentle and much more soft. And I had to just treat her like she's my grandma. Like, hey, come on in. Hey, let me get you something to drink. And just, you know what I mean? Peaceful and calm and relaxing, you know? And then I'd have like the driver CEO who's like, hey, I need you to pull up this car, blah, 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 blah. And he's literally like, time is money. He's looking at things like, hey, I need to be in and out of here in an hour. You know what I mean? And so, right, I have to mirror what I'm working with here, right? And so that's what I want you to just be cautious of is when you get in those interview process, mirror who you're working with. Okay, I do want to hand over the keys to you right now, though. I want to switch gears for a moment, and I'd love for you to just, I'm going to use this as kind of a coaching session here for you. Ask me any questions. You've been going through the Career Transition Summit, and you've been going through some of the coaching that I provide. So I'd love for you to just ask me a few questions, and let's see if we can unlock a few areas where we can help and make this thing a little bit easier for you, a little bit more efficient. How about that?
Yeah, one thing that's kind of always been a little bit of a challenge for me, and it might be that analytical side you're referring to, is the kitchen sink approach in LinkedIn. So you've seen my LinkedIn. I put a lot of content in there. Question is, how much is too much? And is it making it too complex?
How often are you posting?
It's not the posting, it's the actual profile. So the profile has a lot of different experiences and accomplishments over a long period of time. How much is too much?
Got you. How much is too much on your LinkedIn profile as far in regards to your work experience? Is that the question? Okay. So, like, in your resume, the rule of thumb is relevant 10-year experience. Okay. Relevant, most recent 10-year experience. Your LinkedIn profile needs to kind of mirror your resume a little bit. You don't want to deviate too far off of that. Like, I'll give you an example. So let's say, one of my first jobs was I worked at like Golden Corral when I was like 16 years old. Okay. Not relevant. You don't need to put stuff like that on there. Like, if it's not relevant to what you're going after, you can leave it off. Now, if there's like big gaps in there, you want to try to cover up these big gaps and be able to, or be able to sell your career story and be able to tell people why there's a gap. Okay. But yeah, you don't need to necessarily go back, 30, 40 years and put every job you've ever had in your entire life. Right. No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I didn't go back that far.
Okay.
Not gonna go that far.
How far back are you going?
Long enough to make people wonder how old I am. So, I go back quite a ways. Let's put it this way: there's a 19 in front of it.
Okay, let's put this. Let me put it this way: when a potential employer is looking at your profile and they look at a job that's on your profile, if it is not relevant to the job that you are going for, you don't need to put it. If it's not relevant, it's irrelevant. How about that? And we don't want irrelevant information on your profile. Okay. So that's the way I would look at it. Is this relevant or not? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
How
is it relevant or not?
Yeah, this is kind of shift a little bit. How do you position experience as a competitive advantage when people are looking for something else. Because we've built a lot of the tools that people are reinventing right now. In the networking field, that's actually very common. You have protocols that were built a long time ago, you shift them over, and then you try to replicate what was being done, the capabilities of something old in something new. So it looks like it's new, but it's really just repackaging with another protocol. So when you talk about experience, not just in that, but I mean, I know it brings a lot of patterns, but how do you bring that up in a way that resonates with somebody who's younger, who may be getting defensive about their own level of experience while they're looking at you? Because I'm probably not going to wind up with a manager who's younger than older than
me. Let me make sure I'm understanding the question. So what you're saying is, in an interview process, you're talking to somebody who is younger than you, right? Chances are they're going to be younger than you, right? And you're trying to reframe some of the solutions that you've created because of what?
I would let me restate it completely.
Then. Yeah. How about that? Yeah. Try to make this question
how do you
really
position
clear.
Experience to an advantage to somebody who's younger.
I got what you're saying, because you're overqualified. Right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I got you now. Okay. All right. I was struggling real hard to understand the question. So you're overqualified. You've got a lot of experience, and you're trying to get them to understand that experience is a value, okay, to the organization, and not the fact that you are, again, that term overqualified. So let's unpack overqualified for just a second. It's important to understand what this actually means and what you can do about it. So it's not the fact that you have too much skill. Like, that's never going to be a bad thing. It goes back to the age discrimination that I was talking about earlier. Okay. So there's a few objections that they're thinking about. You always have to understand what the objection is before it comes out. Okay. And so when it comes to ageism and age discrimination, it's a stereotype. Okay. Now, stereotypes are based in truth, but they are not the truth. It is not true for everyone. Okay. So this is a negative stereotype of an older worker. Actually, I want to ask you, what do you think the stereotypes of an older worker are? I know what they are, but I want to know if you know what they are.
The way I see it, they think you're tired, you're not going to try, you're going to question their position or authority. You're going to have an answer to everything before they've considered the other options. So they haven't yet had time to grow into accepting that. But those are kind of what I think of.
All right. So we were talking about age discrimination being overqualified, which means they don't want to pay for you. But there's other objections going on, right? There's, again, resistor of ideas, slow to adapt. Maybe you're not going to be quick to adjust with technology, right? As we live in a world of technology and things are moving very, very fast, right? We were just talking about earlier how you have personally decided, not been on social media and all those types of things. So these are some of the negative stereotypes of someone who's a little bit older, seasoned, right? And so what we want to do in the interview process is we want to make sure to overcome a lot of those objections before they ever come out. Now, how do we do that? Okay, well, this is part of what I teach in my Career Transition Summit. What do? Is we start to use technology to our advantage. Okay, these companies have a lot of tools and technology to weed you out. Okay, would you agree or disagree? Absolutely, right? They have a lot of technology and tools to weed you out. But what we need to do is use technology and tools to put the human element back in the job search. So what we teach is a video communications tool called BombBomb. There's other tools out there. There's Loom, Vineyard. There's a bunch of different ones. I teach one called BombBomb, BOMB, where essentially what we're going to do is put the human element in as soon as possible through networking on LinkedIn. Okay. So we're going to send out little video messages on LinkedIn that are like voicemails that grab their attention. Okay. We're going to get them to schedule with us on our calendar on Calendly. So now we are taking them literally from LinkedIn, from either comments, DMs, or even being referred. We're taking them from LinkedIn, these decision makers, now to a conversation where we're having a informational interview. And we have that informational interview, and through that process, we're getting to know them, build relationship with them, and we send in now a video email. Okay, and this video email, it's not a video that's attached. It's not an MP4 or anything like that. It's literally embedded inside of the email, and it blows them away. They get wowed by it. They're literally like, wow, I can't believe Mike would do this. And the reason why we use this video through the process is because the video is overcoming so many of those objections, right? Slow to adapt, as one always said, right? They don't think that you're going to do something like that. Slow to adapt. And they're like, wow, here, you just overcame that objection right off the bat. Resistor of ideas, you overcame that one too, because, dude, they haven't seen anybody do that before. Bad with technology. Man, I haven't seen anybody do this in the interview process. No one's doing this strategy with the video like that. So you're like overcoming a whole bunch of those objections simply with a video, and it's subconscious. They don't even realize it, but you're overcoming it and you're checking those boxes. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's one of the tools that I use to help you. And also, again, the human element, more human element, the better as you get to that interview. That's going to help you to overcome some of that age discrimination. Okay. So what else?
In-person networking. When you connect on LinkedIn, it's just to connect on LinkedIn. How do you take the next step? Because a lot of people are willing to connect. Few are willing to communicate after that.
Love it. Great question. So again, one of the strategies that I do, again, we were just talking about using these little videos. Okay. So I'll give you an example, right? I got, I teach this with the little whiteboard. Okay. And you write the person's name on it. So let's say, Michael, I connect with you. Okay. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I've got a little whiteboard and I'm writing Michael's name on it right now. Okay. A little small whiteboard, handheld. Okay. I got a little dry erase marker and I'm writing his name on it. And what we do with this is I'm going to then flash this at the camera. Okay. I'm going to make a little video and it's going to go something like this. Okay. Hey, Michael, hope you're doing well. Thanks for connecting on LinkedIn. Really appreciate it. Hey, listen, I'd love to have a quick conversation with you, maybe 5-10 minutes just to get to know you a little bit better. Link to my calendar is right over here. You can just go ahead and select the time that works best for you. I'm sure you're probably real busy. So again, just pick the time that works good for you. Anyways, I hope you're doing well and look forward to collaborating with you here on LinkedIn. Have a blessed day and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Right? And so literally this is like a voicemail, right? It's a voicemail with a call to action in it. And you can actually embed inside of that video, you can embed your call to action, and your call to action is your calendar for a conversation, right? And so this is how you take people from becoming a brand new connection. You send them a little quick video that takes 30 seconds, okay? You write their name on it. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Michael just did that. Wow. And they're almost going to feel almost obligated to book that 10-minute call with you. Okay, they're going to feel obligated. And again, the purpose of the call is to get to know them a little bit and figure out how you can push power to power. How can you add value to their life? How can you make their life easier? That's what networking is. It's not about you. Everyone always thinks networking is about you. It's not about you. You connect with somebody on LinkedIn, figure out how you can serve that person. And guess what? They're going to want to serve you back. And that's when you need to have that real concise ask. That's where, when they ask you that question, Michael, what can I do for you? You need to be able to have a solid answer to that.
And that's kind of why I'm asking that question. When I'm working inside the company, and I almost viewed it as being an internal consultant, because I would go try to find out what somebody else needed to have in their job. What were the metrics they needed to show? What would give them an answer? And everybody in an organization contributes to the service performance. Everyone. So without a doubt, there's going to be sometime, somewhere in the future, I'm going to have something that I can show you. This is what's happening. It's under your control. And if we change it to this, I think this will happen. So they're willing to try that. And we'd go forward. And inevitably, I would go back and I would say, this is the result that we got from it. This is the impact you had on the customer. And it would just breed the ability to communicate more with them in the future, to make a better deal, whenever necessary. And so that when there was an emergency, I could get that cooperation also. It really helped out. But I hadn't thought about applying that in terms of LinkedIn, other than in a direct communication.
It's like this. It's like, okay, so I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. But backstage, before we started this episode, okay, you were telling me about some kind of oil that you got that has helped you, you know, because I guess you got sick or had some congestion or something like that. Some kind of oil, right? And you got so passionate about this, okay? And you were so passionate about telling me about this oil because it's helped you, right? And it was natural. There was nothing forced about that conversation. You were just like, oh man. And people, we do this every day, all day. You know, if we go to a good restaurant, we're like, oh, you need to go to this restaurant. It's awesome. It's amazing, right? So the reason I bring all of this up is because the only way you're going to figure out if you have something like that that can help someone else, as an example, is to get to know them, figure out what their challenges and problems are. And then all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, wow, Trevor's not feeling good today. Trevor's actually sick. You know what helped me out? This oil. Hey, Trevor, you should try this oil out, man. This really helped me out. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just going to naturally happen. And then all of a sudden I'm going, wow, man, that oil did help me. It cleared up my sinuses. It makes me feel better. And I'm going to go, Michael, man, dude, thank you so much for that. You really helped me out. I was feeling like crap and you helped me, right? How can I help you? But see, that conversation never happens unless you're able to get them again to a quick call where you can get to know them a little bit, figure out what they're going through, and genuinely care. And that's what networking is: figuring out what someone's problems are, challenges are, what their goals are. How can you help someone reach their goals? Oh my gosh, right? If you can help somebody reach their goals, right? So that's what I think. If you want to help get those conversations from LinkedIn to a phone call, to a Zoom, build relationships, and figure out how you can serve it. Don't go in there in that meeting and make it about you. Make it all about the other person. And I promise you, good things will happen. Okay, what else? What are some other questions? We got a few minutes in here. I want to make sure. What are some good questions that you have for me?
Engagement on LinkedIn posts. So I recently ran a survey. It was about the role of AI in support. And I think there's a lot of people who are in that position who need to know if a company just took their support arrangements and said, okay, I'm going to take that 35% of the actual job and I'm going to put that out front as a chat. And that's going to be your support from here. How much is that worth to you as a company as the percentage of getting it done? Is it worth the same amount as a human? Is it worth 200% more? Is it much more valuable? I've gotten responses of much more. I've gotten responses of same. And I'm just kind of curious, but I don't have that much engagement. So it's not a worthwhile survey because there just isn't enough. There aren't enough people. And they're probably not at the right level to make that call because they're probably not going to wind up purchasing those kind of services. So I'm getting the wrong audience, and as a result, I'm not hitting responses that would be meaningful. How can I increase that?
Okay, so the question is, how can I increase my engagement? You did a poll, and the poll didn't get the type of engagement that you were hoping for. Is that correct? Trying to get some more. Okay. So first of all, great job for putting yourself out there, putting that poll out there. I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and I think you've got like 250 connections, correct? Somewhere in there. Yeah. Okay. So here's the important thing to know about these social media platforms. Okay. Let's say you have 250 connections. That does not mean LinkedIn is going to show your content to all 250 people. They don't do it that way. Okay. What they do is when you create a piece of content, the first thing they look for is it quality? It goes through a spam filter? Like, is this going to be spammy content, right? Is this high quality content? So then after it goes through that filter, okay, then it goes to a percentage of your audience, okay? Typically, let's just call it 10%. So 25 people saw that post. Out of that 25 people, how many people engaged? And that's what they score it off of that. Okay, well, let's test out of these 25, how many people engaged with it. And let's just say one person engaged with it. Well, they're going, this isn't really, good content. We're not going to open it up. Okay. But let's just say out of 25, we got 25. Right? Well, LinkedIn's going ding, ding, ding. All right, we got a winner. Okay. So now they open it up to more of your audience, and then they open it up to third level, right? You go to second and third level from just your first level connections. Then you go to second and third level connections. And then if it really does well, then it opens up to human editors at LinkedIn so an actual human will look at it. And, humans are biased in certain ways. So they may love it. They may go, man, I really like this post. And now get ready for the virality. Okay. That's where the posts go viral, is if it gets through all of those filters, then a human sees it and they turn on the gas. Okay. So to answer your question, how do you get more engagement, right? Either we have to increase the, make the content better, right? Better quality content. That's one thing. That's always the first thing. Other things you can do are controversial, but I'm gonna just, let's see if we can pull back the curtain on this one. Okay, just some controversy. There's these things called engagement pods. Okay, and engagement pods, depending on the type that you're looking at. Okay, there's some good ones and bad ones. There are automated engagement tools out there, which I would highly recommend against. Okay, so things like called Limpod, where it's like bots essentially engaging on your content. So you're paying for that engagement. It's fake engagement, and what happens is LinkedIn, if they catch you, they can block your account. I would highly recommend against that. Don't do that. And there's a lot of people right now, if you ever see this conversation coming up, that's typically what they're talking about. They'll say, "Oh, pods are bad, blah, blah, blah." And they just throw a lot of shade on engagement pods. And that's typically what they're referring to, is these automated engagement pods where you connect a Chrome extension called Limpod, and it just automates the whole thing, and it's all fake. I would highly encourage you not to do that. But then there's these things called real engagement pods, where it's a group message of humans, real people. Typically, these groups are built around some type of commonality. Like, I build these for job seekers. So everybody that's in the group is a job seeker. They're all there trying to get back to employment. So they have that common thread. They're trying to help each other, support each other, They're trying to network with each other, get to know each other, all those things. And so why not build a community pod? That's what you're doing. You're building community, a community pod where everyone is scratching each other's back, helping each other with that engagement. You like my post, I like your post. You engage on mine, I engage on yours, right? Now, one of the things I always recommend if someone's going to do that and go down that route is that don't get reliant on it, because the algorithms are smart, and they're getting smarter. Don't get reliant on it. The other thing is that if you see something that doesn't align with your values, don't engage on it, right? Like, remember that people can see everything that you engage on. So let's say someone put a post in there that was kind of like derogatory or whatever. Who knows what somebody's going to post, right? Somebody posts something in there and you go like and comment on it because you feel almost obligated because they're in that group together with you, right? I would not do that, right? So just pass on the ones that if you feel like it just doesn't align with you, just pass on it. But that's one of the things that you could do to help increase your engagement is to join a community. Join a community like that. But number one would be create better content. That's the first thing I would do.
Point taken. So next, well, I'm always looking internal anyway, for whether or not is this something that I can do better? Is this something that I can ask somebody else to do? That kind of thing. So
yeah, and when you're looking at building better content and creating better content, look at what's being, look at what performs well. Like, look at what actually is doing well. That's what I always do. Go emulate the things that are performing well on LinkedIn. So take some intentional time to scroll on LinkedIn. And the when I say intentional, not just to be a consumer, the intent is to be a creator. And so you're going on LinkedIn to scroll to see, hey, what is doing well here? How are these posts structured? How is the copy structured on this post? And there's a lot of creators on the platform that will teach you literally how to do it through their content. So you're consuming with intention, not to just scroll aimlessly, but take some time to study what is actually performing well. And that way, when you create your content, you start to emulate some of those styles, how to create copy like that. What do the images look like? How are the videos structured? Things like that. So hopefully that helps too.
Next question. When you're engaging with people, I'm now kind of looking more toward the startup environment. I think I've run across some ideas about going toward founders, reaching out to founders directly and looking out where I can find those. Proactive marketing, reaching out to people before they ever have a job open, and just to try to build a relationship, even though they may never have anything for you, but that they may know. Is that maybe more effective in that space where you're looking at the startup space?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great place to start. Remember, we were talking earlier about smaller companies, startup companies, things like that, where they're going to see the value in you, right? I mean, seriously, they're going to see the value in your experience. I mean, it's so interesting because you do have so much value. I mean, you've got so much experience. So yeah, smaller organizations, startups, things like that is a great place to start. Definitely agree with that.
Well, let's see if there's something else I wanted to cover in here, but do you see a difference in who benefits the most from who you know? Or is this a universally applicable way of pursuing connections to business?
Great question. Yes, universal. So years ago, when I started down this path, it started at that group, Frisco Connect, and I walked in there and I saw, all these people job searching, and I was like, okay, let me again, I'm literally, the things I'm telling you to do, I did them. I would sit down with a job seeker and ask them what their challenges were, what their problems were, struggles, what they needed. And there was a common thread, right? Their resumes were going in the black hole. They were applying online. They weren't getting seen. They weren't being discovered. No one's talking to them. They were getting ghosted. All of that is the same for every job seeker. So if you're a job seeker, I want you to hear me. You're not unique in that way. Every job seeker has a story they want to tell me as to why they're not getting seen, discovered, or talked to. And I'm like, no. You don't understand. It has nothing to do with all of that. Like they always feel like, well, it's my background and my resume. And they try to give me this big story as to why. They're trying to justify why they're not being seen, heard, or discovered, right? Every job seeker. And I'm like, no. Time out. It's the same for everyone. Okay? They're all going through it. Whether you're a recent college grad or you're a senior level executive dealing with ageism, like they're both dealing with the same exact thing, right? So I figured that out. I was like, wait a minute. Everybody's got the same story, right? How do we solve that problem? That was the problem I went after to solve, right? And so it is universal, okay? How do you get discovered? How do you network? How do you get the human element back in the job search? How do you, build relationship online? All these questions that you've been asking me, that is what helps people get back to work. And I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of resume writers out there and all this kind of that and the other, right? And gotta love them, okay? But the resume isn't the reason why you're not getting a job. Everybody always feels like it's their resume, right? And it's like, no, it's not actually. You think it's the resume, but it's not. Because guess what? You can tailor your resume a million times, okay? Have a coach rewrite it a million times, and you're still in the black hole. You're still going into the ATS abyss, okay? And no one's going to talk to you. So I would say if you're recreating your resume over and over, and if you're changing it up and you're getting results, okay, hey, keep doing what you're doing if you're getting results. If you're not getting results, okay, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result is what? Insanity. Exactly. So let's change it up. Okay, let's switch it up. It's not the resume, it's something else. Okay, we need to market. We need to have a personal brand. We need to reach out. We need inbound leads. We need outbound leads. What I started to teach was basically what I needed in my business when I started my business, which was creating inbound leads, creating marketing, branding, all of those things that I needed as a business owner is the exact same thing job seekers need. It's the exact same thing. Because you are now coming to market. You are on the market. You have to sell yourself. But before sales, guess what comes before sales? Marketing. Okay? Before sales comes marketing. Before you get your Big Mac from the drive-thru, you see what? The golden arches. Those golden arches, simply put, that's marketing. They don't put that thing in the sky for no reason, right? You have to know that it's there, right? You see what I'm saying? Like you don't get the Big Mac. You don't buy and have a sale. A transaction never happens without those golden arches being up in the sky, right? We need marketing first. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to teach people. It's like marketing comes before sales. They're both important, but you need to sell yourself. And then before you can ever sell yourself, you need to bring yourself to market and build a personal brand. So I know that was a long-winded
that was awesome.
Rant.
That was awesome. I mean, that shows your heart. You could see the enthusiasm and fire in you when you were putting that out there. I really appreciate that. That was memorable.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm trying to get it across. I know it's like, and I'm trying to teach people, when it comes to marketing, right? How do I do it efficiently? How do I do it without burnout? How do I make that high quality content that is not going to take up a whole bunch of time and money? Because you don't need to spend all day doing this either. I don't want you sitting there as a job seeker spending all day creating content. Like, that's not the game here, right? And so what I try to teach people like yourself, it's actually what we're going to be doing with this episode, right? Which is long form video. We're creating an episode, we're creating this conversation, and we're going to chop this up into a whole bunch of little micro clips. Okay. A whole bunch of micro clips. You can extract so much content from a video. It's ridiculous. The written content, once you transcribe it and all of that, and these AI tools are making it so easy now. There's a lot of tools that do it all for you. So you can take a long form conversation like this one, and then boom, now we've got a content machine that gets generated from it, right? So that's one of the processes that I teach the job seekers. Is like, hey, let's just go get on camera and have a conversation.
And it is a little bit awkward, and it's a little bit of practice involved beforehand. You've made that a lot easier than it maybe would have been.
It's uncomfortable. I get it, right? I remember, okay, first of all, Michael, I got to give you hats off to you, man. I got to tell you. So this is your first ever podcast. Okay. So congratulations, my man. This is your first ever podcast. I know you're nervous. I know it. Okay. I saw it when you popped in the room when we first were backstage. I know you're nervous, and that's okay. I was nervous. I remember my very first episode. I remember the first time I went on a podcast. I was terrified. I was like shaking a piece of paper with my notes on it. It was like I was absolutely terrified, right? But then there was this huge energy when I got off of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Wow. Like, and I can, like, wow, it wasn't that scary.
The thing is that, being in support for so long, I'm meeting people when they're not having a good day. And so usually they're really up here. They're really excitable. And part of my role is to kind of bring them down a little bit to the point where we're talking about the problem, not about how they're feeling. And that's kind of why that shows up in the way that I communicate. So that part I'm a little bit concerned about. I'm used to being on stage. I've been on calls with 15 plus people, VPs, in every stage of communication and thought process and fear and anger that you can think of. But it's not on camera. So there's a little element right there that I'm not used to.
The camera, yeah. Hey, but you know what? You're never going to be an expert unless you do. You have to do. And so what is that? I think Zig Ziglar says it this way. You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. Right. And the first time you do anything, I want you to expect to suck at it. That's just the way it is. First time you do anything, don't expect to be amazing. It's all about expectations. If you go in there with this high expectation and it's your first time, well, you just, like, come on. The first time you do anything, you're going to suck at it. So just understand that.
Well, I'm really grateful for you giving me this opportunity, and I've enjoyed doing this. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, and when I said that, I did not mean you personally. I meant just anytime you're doing anything, like if I'm going to create, if I'm going to write a book for the first time, if I'm going to, create a course for the first time, if I'm going to do a podcast for the first time, if I'm going to do anything for the first time, you're probably not going to be an expert because it's your first time. So go in with that expert.
You're getting me exactly where I am right now because I have written a book on service, unpublished. And so there, it's always sitting in the background. Will it be finished? It has to be, because otherwise it'll just sit there and eventually become bits in the ether.
Yeah, you got to finish that book for sure. Get it out there. All right. So what I want to do real quick is I want to go to the audience and those that are on stage with us. We've had Mike here with us today. He's been amazing. And I want to see if they have any opportunities or anything that we may be able to help and support you with, Mike, because that's the ultimate goal here. I want to help and support you. So I am going to stop the live stream here and go to the audience here in just a second. Mike, is there any last words that you want to part with the podcast audience, the listeners?
Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. If I could have given you a mic drop moment for that period of time where you're talking about who you know, I would have done it. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm gonna give you three. Mike, because this is amazing. Okay, 3 mic drops for Mike Murphy in the house. Mike, where can the audience connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Mike Murphy 2020. My contact information is in there as well.
Perfect. I'll make sure to put it in the show notes as well. So those of you that are listening, you want to connect with Mike, make sure you do that. I would encourage you to do that. Let's blow him up. Okay. Let's give some encouragement. It's hard out there for a job seeker. Okay, guys, I want you to know that it's really hard. Lots of ups and downs. And so we want to show some love. Okay. So make sure you connect with Mike. Mike, thanks again for being on the show. And it's all about who you know. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.